Criminals are a superstitious, cowardly lot. As a hero, you must be able to strike terror into their hearts. You must be a creature of the night. Black. Terrible. A bat! That's right. Na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na. Wingnut and Screwloose. Hey, what's up? This is Gary from Raz Rentals, and today I'm going to talk about the 1990 release Wingnut and Screwloose. These guys were great, you know, I love this guy here. They fit in so well with all the other Ninja Turtle toys. I always really liked Wingnut's hook hand. I think that's pretty cool. I always liked his heat rub. Mine's water. You see that? You see that water in there? And I love Screwloose. He's really awesome too. This giant mosquito guy. He's got the blood in here. You can make that move around. It used to be completely filled with blood, but I think it's starting to evaporate or something because now I got these little bubbles at the top here. Now you would think that Wingnut, since he's a bat and Screwloose is a mosquito, that Wingnut would be a lot bigger. But I don't know what they were thinking. All right, I know. I'm just joking. This isn't Wingnut and Screwloose. This is Blitzkrieg Bat here and Mosquitor. So let's get those guys out of here. And now here is the real Wingnut and Screwloose. Pretty awesome, right? All right. I know. The joke is getting old, and I apologize. But we're finally done with it, because here is the real Wingnut and Screwloose. Now, I never had these guys back in the day, but I always thought that they looked pretty awesome. And I used to love going over to my friend's house and playing with them because, they're cool. And I've always been a big Batman fan. And obviously here, Wingnut is a parody of Batman. This is something that kind of perplexed me too as a kid. Because, in that very first season of the Ninja Turtle cartoons, you had Scrag, who was a member of Bebop and Rocksteady's gang. And he turned into a bat. And, he appeared in, coloring books back then and stuff like that. So I always had him, in my head as, the Bat Mutant. And then a couple years later, in 1990, out comes Wingnut and Screwloose. And I always wondered, why didn't Scrag get a toy? Why did they make Wingnut instead? It was probably, a lot of it was probably banking off of the popularity of the 1989 Batman movie. But, I'd kind of wish I had both. And what's really awesome is if eventually NECA releases their cartoon version of Wingnut and Screwloose, we will finally have a toy line with both Wingnut, Screwloose, and Scrag, and that'll be pretty awesome. Well, holy crap! Just as I was making this video, NECA had their Comic-Con panel, or Comic-Con announcements, or whatever, for 2021, and they announced Wingnut and Screwloose this year. That's amazing! So I can't wait to get these guys and finally have both Scrag and Wingnut and Screwloose in the same collection. That's insane. On the back of Wingnut's card, it says that he is a klutzy-caped vampire bat from the planet Huano. That's Huano with an H, not with a G like guano. Huano was destroyed by Krang, and Wingnut survived the explosion because he was sucked into a vortex and transported to Earth, along with Screwloose, who's a Huano mosquito. So even his origin is a parody of Batman, because Wingnut wants revenge on Krang for killing his family. So you're willing to take a life, long as it's Krang's. Then it will happen this way. You make the kill, but your pain doesn't die with Krang, it grows. So you run out into the night to find another face, and another, until one terrible morning you wake up and realize that revenge has become your whole life, and you won't know why. I know you threw the Joker off a building, right? The other important thing to mention on the back of the card is that Donatello is the genius behind the mechanical turbo wings worn by Wingnut. So before I review the original 1990 Wingnut and Screwloose action figures, I'm going to talk about Wingnut and Screwloose as they appear in the Fred Wolf series all the way up to the 2012 series. I'll talk about where he appears in comic books, in video games, and just whatever I can possibly think of. And not only that, I'm also going to talk about the many different bat creatures throughout the Ninja Turtle timelines. And there's a bunch of them. People for some reason love bat creatures. I don't know if it's because of vampires or what, but let's get started. Now, from what I remember, and I've been trying to think without having to look through all my Mirage comic books, issue by issue, I'm pretty sure that no bat creature shows up in the original Mirage comic books. Now, if I'm wrong, please tell me, and I'll put an update or a pinned comment on here. But what I do remember is that in this very cool Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and Other Strangeness RPG book, there is a bat mutant right there. And you know, this is a pretty cool book. I've never played this game. I don't know anybody who's ever played this Ninja Turtle game. But I just got this book because the artwork in it is all done by Peter Laird and Kevin Eastman, and it's pretty awesome. And what I do think is kind of funny about this is that, like, you know, later on, Peter Laird would complain about how, like, there were too many mutants in, like, the Fred Wolf series. Well, this book came out, like, 2 years before the Fred Wolf series premiered, and this book is just, like, completely filled with mutants that they created. Like, the whole, like, a lot of the premise here is creating different mutants, different mutant characters. And these guys are my favorite. These Terror Bears, I think those are hilarious. In Tales of the TMNT Volume 2, you have some issues here where the Ninja Turtles team up with the Cowboys of Moo Mesa. Now, I gotta be honest with you, I've never been, like, a huge fan of the Cowboys of the Moo Mesa, and I don't even remember the purpose or, like, why they were crossing over with these guys, what was all happening here. But one of the villains they fight is this guy named Blastagun Bat. And so I count that as a Bat crossover in a Ninja Turtle comic book. Also, in Tales of the TMNT number 58, you have another crossover with the Cowboys of Moo Mesa, and this one's pretty cool because this is kind of like there's a scene in here which is very similar to Turtles Forever, where, like, this character, you know, he creates all these different gates, and you can see all these different types of Ninja Turtles throughout the different continuities or whatever. And up here you have a shot of the mighty Mutanimals. And of course, as we're going to see in a little bit, Wingnut was a member of the mighty Mutanimals, and there he is. So, like, this was crazy. This was, like, such a fanboy thing. You know, when I saw this, I was amazed. I was like, holy crap, the Archie characters are actually in a Mirage comic book? That's amazing. So Wingnut and Screwloose didn't show up in Mirage Volume 2, and they didn't show up in the Image Comics Volume 3 either. I just wanted to point this out because I thought it was cool. You know, it's a bat creature in Ninja Turtle comic books here. Eventually, in this series, the Image series, Splinter gets mutated into a bat. So he goes from a rat to a bat. In the Archie series, Wingnut and Screwloose made a bunch of appearances, and their first appearance was in Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Adventures number 8. Now, this came out in February of 1990. So I've been, like, wondering here, how early did the 1990 toys come out? Did people get the toys before they read this comic, or were there people who actually read this comic book and then got the toy? In the Archie series, Wingnut and Screwloose look a little different. Wingnut here, he's got, like, purple gloves, and his fur is blue instead of brown like the original toy. And Screwloose here, I mean, he looks even more like Robin with the gloves and the actual eye mask and all that kind of stuff. And in my honest opinion, I prefer this Wingnut and Screwloose. Like, when I think of Wingnut and Screwloose, I mostly think of how he appears in the Adventure comics, more so than he appears in the toy line. Because like I said, I never had the toys, but I had a bunch of Archie comics, and, you know, this is how I always picture him in my head. Alright, so to put this issue in some context, this issue takes place right after the Ninja Turtles were wrestling on Stump Asteroid. That's why they still have these very cool wrestling costumes on. I've always been a huge fan of Raph's. I think his is great. You know, this always reminded me like the black Spider-Man suit or Venom. You know, I think that's great. This is Cuddly the Cowlick. He's like a form of transportation. He will take the Ninja Turtles to different dimensions and different planets and stuff like that. How does he take them there? Well, they have to climb in his mouth, and then he will fly them there. It's the weirdest form of transportation, but, you know, it's one of the coolest and, like, most memorable things of the Adventure series. You know, it's just weird, like, oh, flying around in a giant cow head mouth? I don't think so. So Cuddly here leaves them on top of this skyscraper, and then you turn the page, and right off the bat here, Wingnut is chucking rocks at their heads. Not on purpose, but still, I mean, come on, he hits Raph right in the head. You know, that's not good. Turns out, you know, there's like a little bit of a misunderstanding here. The Ninja Turtles think he's like a troublemaker, like a bad guy, so they get into a fight, you know. Throughout half the issue, they're kind of like enemies. But of course, in the end, they both realize that they're actually allies, and they're both fighting for the same side. You know, same comic book BS as usual. But I do like this, you know. I think this is a cool comic book, especially because of Ken Mitroni's art. I think his artwork is amazing. He's my favorite adventure artist, and I just love the way he draws Wingnut. He draws him very expressive. The faces are always great on these characters. And like I said, I like Screwloose's look here a lot more than the actual toy. You know, it looks a lot like Robin, especially with like that eye mask and the green gloves. I feel like the Screwloose toy, he's got like baggy pants and like a tank top on. I don't know. It's not the best. So Wingnut here, he is breaking skylights on, you know, on top of these buildings. Why? Because he's trying to find Krang. That's the secret that they learn about Wingnut, you know, why he's doing it, his motive. Like that face right there, that's just hilarious. And Screwloose just hands him rocks to chuck at things. So another cool thing about this comic book is they actually have the turtle blimp in it. And you don't see the turtle blimp too often in the Adventure series. So it's pretty cool that it's included here. So they're flying it around, they're trying to find Wingnut and Screwloose. Wingnut still thinks that they're enemies. So he actually like flies through the blimp and pops it, and the turtles have to disengage from the blimp here and fly around on the glider part, which happens in like so many of the old cartoon episodes. It's like they're always popping it, or there's always something going on with the balloon that they have to, you know, drop off of it, just because they wanted you to really, you know, enjoy the series like you enjoy your toys. So, like I said, Wingnut and Screwloose, they're trying to find Krang because Wingnut wants to have his revenge on Krang. Why does he want to have his revenge on him? Well, you know, Krang invaded his home planet, Huano, and he killed his parents, just like Batman. And as if that wasn't bad enough, Krang killed all of the planet's females and doomed his race to extinction. And, like, come on, if you were a teenager and all the females were killed on the planet, man, you would be going crazy. It even says right here, maybe now you can understand the source of the boss's insanity. Yeah, I'd be crazy too. Now, this is kind of like a weird thing, although it is cool. It's like something that I think is very creative. You see Screwloose here and Wingnut, they have a symbiotic relationship. Screwloose's race lives off of the blood of Wingnut's race. And for whatever reason, the only way that these bat creatures can fall asleep is by being bit by the mosquitoes. So, you know, they help each other out, right? But that's such a weird, I don't know, such a weird detail, but I really like it. I think that's pretty cool. So, of course, Wingnut, you know, he breaks loose from the Ninja Turtles just to be lapped up by Cowlick Cuddly here, and you know, he's taken to a Stump Asteroid. Before moving on to Wingnut's next appearance, I do want to mention this really quick. I've always been a huge fan of these Turtles adventure covers. I think that they, from around issue 5 through 30, 32, somewhere around there, they all have these very awesome like watercolor paintings, or I don't know what this is. Is that airbrush or is that watercolor? I don't know. But it just looks amazing. Like, I love it. I love how everything is rendered. It actually looks 3D. It actually looks kind of moody. The colors and all that, they just look great. You know, like stuff like this is Mighty Mutanimals comic book. You know, that looks fine. But the coloring and the inking is just very basic. And, you know, it just doesn't stand out to me like this does. And what's really awesome is if you want to read a copy of Ninja Turtles Adventures number 8, where the whole comic book is colored like this, you've got to find this. This Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Volume 1. This is by Tundra, which was, I think, like Kevin Eastman's like publishing company whenever he was trying to do his own thing. Is it like a comic book company or was it a publishing company? I don't even know. So you get this. It has a little bit of a extra thing in the beginning here, this origin that's fully painted or colored. I think that's watercolor. And then you start in issue, I'm going to say that's 5 or 6, I can't remember, with Ray Fillet. And yeah, that's 5, because 6 was Leatherhead, and then 7 is Stump Asteroid, and then 8 is finally Wingnut and Screwloose there. So you can actually see the cover there without the title written across the top of it, which is pretty cool too. And like I said, It's just, you know, a little more moody. Although, look at that. They colored Wingnut here a little closer to the toy. He's got brown fur instead of the blue. I think that was a mistake. But still very, very cool. Wingnut returns in issue 12, which is kind of like the beginning of the battle for the Turnstone. He's just in the last page there, and look how awesome he looks. Issue 13 is quite possibly my favorite issue of Ninja Turtles Adventures. Like, I had this as a kid. I just read it over and over and over again. And I never got bored with it. I used to try to draw the characters in it. It was a favorite of mine. And still to this day, when I think of the Ninja Turtles, this is one that pops in my head all the time, right? I think it's great. On the planet Herobil in Dimension X, the Ninja Turtles, Leatherhead, Wingnut and Screwloose, Trap, which is this guy right here with a cigar in his mouth, and Cherube, I think that's her name, this blue girl, they fight Bebop and Rocksteady, the Shredder, Krang, and these insectoid warriors of Maligna. And during the battle, they're trying to find the Turnstone, which is like a powerful orb. I don't know. It's a very cool, very awesome issue. And if that all wasn't cool enough, also the whole thing is being broadcast by Stump and Sling on Stump Asteroid. There's these little tiny cameras flying around and stuff like that. And like I said, it's a really great issue. It's very cool. And the artwork in it is just fantastic. Again, by Ken Mitroni. I don't know. You can't go wrong. If you've never read this comic book, you should read it. So what does Wingnut and Screwloose do in this issue? Well, while this battle is taking place and Leatherhead actually finds the Turnstone, Wingnut and Screwloose are just kind of fighting Bebop, Rocksteady, and the Shredder in the sky. They're driving around, or they're riding around on their foot skis, and Wingnut is just kind of like tricking them into smashing into each other, and he's just throwing rocks at the Shredder's head. And what I also really loved about this comic book was at the end, Cherube, she gets all these bad guys, and she uses the Turnstones to kind of sentence them to sort of like a prison, but it's not really. Shredder actually does get sent to prison here. But Bebop and Rocksteady, they get sent to Africa, where they can live with the wild rhinos and warthogs, which they love. That's great for them. And Krang here, he gets sentenced to Morbus, the toxic waste dump world, which is where he eventually meets up with Slash. Alright, so next, Wingnut and Screwloose don't show up until after issue 19. This is 19. They are not in this. But the miniseries, The Mighty Mutanimals, continues directly out of this issue. And that's this. And that's where Wingnut and Screwloose return. This was a very, very cool miniseries. I like this a lot. And all these covers are just awesome looking. And all the covers also have Wingnut. So that's good. And that's the trade paperback or whatever you want to call it from back in the day when they combined all 3 issues into one. So, in issue 1 of the Mighty Mutanimals miniseries, Wingnut and Screwloose here save Stump and Sling from certain death. In issue 2, Wingnut and Screwloose meet Ray Fillet, Jaguar, and Dreadmon for the first time. And of course, just in true comic book fashion, of course they have to fight because there's a misunderstanding. Good guys just can't meet for the first time and be like, hey, what's up? Hey, you want to fight the bad guys? Yeah, let's go fight the bad guys. All right, they got to be like, I think you're the bad guy. In issue 3, the Mighty Mutanimals fight Skull and Bean. They're these giant insect guys. See, the whole thing about this is that Maligna is trying to invade Earth, and, the Mutanimals and the Ninja Turtles are trying to stop them. It's this race of insect people. They pretty much want to eat everybody on Earth, and, they're trying to make sure that they don't do that. So you have these big guys, and what does Wingnut and Screwloose do that is stands out here? Well, Screwloose throws a rock in Bean's head. Bean actually shoots out some kind of stink bomb, and it'll make everybody kind of pass out or something. I can't remember what it does exactly. But he throws that rock in there, and the stink bomb poofs in his own head, and man, that looks awful. That is not a good way to be. What's really awesome is if you get the trade paperback or the collected version, you get this gallery of Mutanimals pinups by Stephen Bissett, who was a Swamp Thing artist and a few other things. He's a very popular artist. And, in the back of most issues, you only get 2 of them. I think in issue 3, you get Cuddly and Leatherhead. But I think some of these are only in this issue. Like this one of Maligna here. Jaguar and Dreadmon are issue 1. I know that. I think Ray Fillet and Mondo are in issue 2. But I'm pretty sure that this pinup of Wingnut and Screwloose does not appear in any of those issues. I didn't notice it in there. So that is pretty awesome looking. So after the Mighty Mutanimals miniseries ended in July of 1991, Wingnut and the rest of the Mutanimals were missing until April of 92 when... forget about those. When the Mighty Mutanimals launched in its own series. Now this was supposed to be ongoing, and there was actually supposed to be a cartoon. They were going to make a toy line and stuff like that. And you can actually look this up and find out more information on TMNT Entity. I suggest checking that out. There's a lot of interesting things going on there. But this series, I think, was canceled a little prematurely. It only lasted 9 issues. So I will tell you the most interesting things that happened with Wingnut and Screwloose within these issues. So issue 1 just kind of serves as an introduction to all the Mutanimals. Like, there's not really much going on that's very interesting or anything. So you just kind of get this 2-page spread of Wingnut talking about flying with these bats. And then the issue just kind of ends with the Mutanimals agreeing to go find Jaguar's Madre. That's pretty much it. Issue 2 has some pretty interesting information about Wingnut. In this issue, they fight this giant snake, and it wraps itself around Wingnut and actually breaks his metallic wings, mechanical wings, or whatever you want to call them. And they kind of explain a little bit in the Archie continuity, like why he has these wings, because as you can see there, his wings are very small. I guess, he had trouble when he was a kid flying, so he had to create some mechanical wings to help him. And then they just kind of show here the Krang's invaders coming and killing his parents. This also has this very cool... I would love to see, a Jaguar and Dreadmon toy from either NECA or Super 7. It'd be cool if they, adapted them in the Playmates style or something like that, or NECA, adapted them into the Fred Wolf style, something like that. And also cool characters like this cool snake guy. I mean, that guy kind of freaks me out a little bit with those eyes, but it's still very cool. Issue 3 just kind of continues the search for Jaguar's Madre. Nothing really new here for Wingnut. Again, issue 4, there's not really much big going on with Wingnut. Nothing too crazy or interesting. It's just continuing to try to find Jaguar's Madre. You have this one shot on this page here where they all have these gigantic guns. And this shot's a ripoff because, check that out. That's the cover of issue 5. Not only do they use a page from issue 4 as the cover of issue 5, but the very first page in issue 5 is very similar to the cover. Mondo Gecko looks pretty much exactly the same. Dreadmon is almost exactly the same, except his guns are angled a little differently. Wingnut and Screwloose are very similar. Of course, Ray Fillet is different, but come on, there is some real big similarities going on here. So this issue is all right. The biggest thing in this is that the Mutanimals face off with a bunch of wannabe Terminators, which are led by Null. You have this very cool gunfight in here. But you know what happens? The Mutanimals lose. I'll be honest with you. The Mutanimals are pretty weak. It seems like they always lose or something. They don't... I don't know. They're just not as powerful as the Turtles. Their losses seem, I don't know. They just seem almost even though I love these characters, they almost seem kind of like a bunch of losers. So in this issue, Screwloose gets shot and then Wingnut gets shot. Come on. Issue 6 is actually a part of a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Adventures crossover. I'll show you the inside in a second, but I just want to marvel at the 3 covers of these put together. They're drawn by Peter Laird and A.C. Farley, and man, they look amazing. So in issue 6, it's just like the Ninja Turtles and the Mutanimals fighting Null and the 4 Horsemen of the Apocalypse. Let's see here. You have pestilence, famine, war, and death. He just kind of looks like the Grim Reaper. But there's some, like this is a very cartoony kind of art for the Mutanimals here. And I don't know, there's some pretty cool things happening in here. I like it. This story is concluded in Ninja Turtles Adventures number 39. And this one is where Wingnut and Screwloose actually do something. Here you have Screwloose, and he finally realizes how they can beat famine, war, and pestilence. They're kind of like puppets being controlled by death, you know, and he has to destroy the actual puppets to destroy the actual gigantic creatures. And I mean, that's pretty much it. I gotta say, you know, like I said, in Mutanimals number 6, the artwork was very cartoony. I definitely like this Chris Allen artwork a lot more. You know, his stuff is very, very nice looking. Now here's Mighty Mutanimals number 7. Now, I mean, this is pretty weak because that's the only time you see Wingnut or Screwloose. Just this little tiny picture of them next to this boat. You know, this is pretty cool because this is actually the first appearance of Armagon. But, you know, the artwork in this issue is very, very cartoony. And, like, it is cool looking. Like, I do like the expressiveness of everything. Like, I think it works well for what it is. However, there's a huge contrast coming up because this is his first appearance, and then you have the Future Shark trilogy. Like, I don't know if it's right after this, but it's very close. And they actually, you know, advertise the Future Shark trilogy. And, like, look at those covers. Like, these are all drawn by Peter Laird. Like, look at him there, or there, or there. Those are, like, you know, scary and crazy looking. And then you look at this and, you know, it's kind of like Tiny Toons or something like that. And that's fine. You know, I'm not going to dump on it for looking like Tiny Toons. I thought, you know, I like cartoony stuff. I'm just saying that you have a large bit of contrast from issue to issue here. So here you have issue 8. Now, here's the thing. In this issue, Wingnut is flying, and I don't remember them making a big deal anywhere about him actually being able to fly again. As I was looking through here, you know, he just kind of starts flying with these little tiny wings. So maybe I missed it, but I don't think so. And here's the final issue of the Mighty Mutanimals. You know, nothing too exciting happens in this other than them freeing Slash and Slash joining the Mutanimals. As for Wingnut and Screwloose, I don't know. He doesn't really do too much. You know, it's just kind of a shame because it's like I feel like you had a really good opportunity here to flesh out these characters in pretty good detail and have them go on like really cool adventures. But I don't know, the storytelling in this or the adventures just never seemed as exciting or I don't know, as good as the Ninja Turtles Adventures. I don't know. All right, so the Mutanimals continue in this Ninja Turtles Adventures backup series. It begins in issue 48. And, you know, not much really happens in these, well, in the beginning anyways. It lasts 7 parts, and pretty much the whole thing is that this group of mercenaries or assassins, they plot to kill the Mutanimals. I mean, look at all those guns. Look at these guys, too. These guys are the most 90s looking assassins in the history of assassins. You look at these guys and you're like, yeah, 90s. They look like they should be fighting like X-Force or something like that. So this lasts 7 parts, 48, 49, 50. And, you know, I do have to say that the best thing about this backup series is even though I'm not the hugest fan of Jim Lawson, I think sometimes he's good and sometimes I don't like him as much. But what I really do like about this backup series is the inks by Eric Talbot. I think his inking makes it look very interesting. It makes it look very dark and kind of gritty. Oh man, I bent my comic. So, you know, in this issue, the Mutanimals almost die. but they don't. And then you got 51. They show up in there, and here's I'll show you something that's pretty cool looking. And like Wingnut and Screwloose, I like hardly do anything in these. They're just kind of there. But like, look at that, like the way that the inking is on like his neck and his shoulders and stuff like that. It just looks awesome. You can like a lot of that is the inking. That's definitely not the penciling. Like, I don't know, like they... Alright, so 52, 53. There you go, have you got Wingnut picking his nose here, looking around. This Mondo comes in with his girlfriend. They're looking at these mercenaries. Did they say what the name of the mercenaries are? Or assassins, or whatever you want to call them? No. I know some of their names, but I don't know the name of the team. I mean, like, certain shots like that with Slash, I mean, that looks fine. That artwork looks pretty good. Alright, so, in the final part of the Mutanimals backup story, what happens? Well, a meteorite lands on their island, and out pops Skull and Bean. They kick the crap out of the Mutanimals. Wingnut here is trying to fight this dude, or that's Skull. So, the Mutanimals actually do beat them, but, surprise, surprise, these bad guys show up with all these guns and stuff and totally just shoot them and kill them all. So, the Mutanimals die. They're dead. No more Wingnut and Screwloose after this. And here's the final bit of Archie Wingnut that I have for you. Just this nice shot in the Mutant Universe Sourcebook, number 2, of Wingnut and Screwloose, drawn by A.C. Farley. Like, that looks awesome. Like I said, I really like this design a lot. I would love to see NECA release this line, or this outfit for him in the, to go along with your Toon line or something like that. That'd be awesome. So before I move on with Wingnut and comic books, I just want to make this very brief comparison, right? Just so it's fresh in your minds. If you just rewind a little bit, you'll be able to see a full frontal picture of Wingnut in Archie comics, as he's drawn by A.C. Farley, right? So here's the toy, right? And now here I'll point out, like, some of the big differences here. Obviously, the feet, the boots are set up a little different. The Archie Wingnut, he's pretty much just covered in blue. Even where it's not fur, he just has like a full blue bodysuit pretty much. He's got like a very different kind of shoulder pad setup where it's, I don't know what you'd call that, what you would call that kind of armor. Where this is kind of like, a couple of different pieces. That is just kind of like around his neck, and that's about it. One thing you'll notice that's the big difference here is Wingnut has a W on his chest in this original toy. And in Archie comics, he just has the Batman bat symbol, like he's even more like a copy of Batman. Let's see what else. Oh, the wings. These wings to me appear way more bat-like than they do in the Archie comics. I think in the Archie comics, they appear more like gliders, even though they kind of have like the arches of the bat wings on the bottom. But they're just built a little differently, and you don't even really see the little wings inside of those mechanical wings until they're actually smashed in Mighty Mutanimals number 2. So, like I said, that's that, and let's move on. After Archie was over, Wingnut and Screwloose stayed dead and out of print until this IDW comic book. This is Bebop and Rocksteady Destroy Everything, number 3. And, you really don't get much of a Wingnut and Screwloose appearance here, but at some point, Bebop and Rocksteady open up a bunch of, like, capsules with mutants inside of them, and one just happens to be Wingnut and Screwloose. But obviously it is a far cry from the Wingnut and Screwloose we all know and love. You'd think that with how IDW has milked so many of the characters from Archie and the toy line, that they would have actually done a Wingnut and Screwloose proper story, but whatever. All right, well, now we're pretty much done with comic books, but I am going to mention one final comic book in a little bit when I talk about another bat creature. But right now we're going to talk about Wingnut in the Fred Wolf series. Now, Wingnut appeared in the Season 5 episode, Zack and the Alien Invaders. All right, this episode premiered in October of 1991, and Wingnut in the cartoon, he looks a lot like the toy. A lot of the details are similar. He has similar gauntlets, arm pads, shoulder pads, thigh pads, and boots. The biggest difference is, it's a little more simplified. He's missing the W on his chest, the rip on his belly, and his proportions are pretty different. His body shape is more like a fat guy than like a mutated humanoid bat. The wings are similar and almost exact. You have the rockets on the bottom, you have the guns on top, you have a few metal plates, and they're big metal wings built around Wingnut's very small wings. Screwloose is very different just because he's like huge in the cartoon. Like he is almost the same size as Zack, so that's pretty crazy. And you get to see him in full color. Like the original toy is just completely yellow. You got no paint on it whatsoever. If you look at the pictures of the new NECA Wingnut and Screwloose, you'll notice that there's like a bazooka or like a laser gun next to them. Now, Wingnut actually does pick up this weapon and hold it in his hands in the episode, but I don't think he ever actually like shoots it. I think at some point he's just talking to Screwloose about how like they have all these weapons and they're gonna use these kids to like take over Earth, but like he never actually uses the weapon. Like in the end, they just kind of run away like a bunch of sissies from the Ninja Turtles, and that's that. There's not like a real fight between Wingnut, Screwloose, and the Ninja Turtles. In the episode Zack and the Alien Invaders, Zack, who's the fifth turtle, he reads the latest issue of Alien Invaders, and it warps his young mind. Everywhere he looks, he thinks he sees aliens trying to invade Earth, but every accusation turns out to be false. Zack's parents get so tired of it, they decide to shape him up and send him to military school. That's pretty rough, I gotta say. It's probably for the best, though, because while at military school, Zack uncovers a sinister alien plot. That's right! The faculty are actually Wingnut and Screwloose in disguise, and they're brainwashing kids to help them take over the world. That's right! In the Fred Wolf series, Wingnut and Screwloose are bad guys. And they have no, like, turn to the good side in the end or anything like that. They're just bad guys. That's actually pretty refreshing. Every other thing, it would always be like a bad guy or like some misunderstanding, and the turtles would become buddies with them by the end. But in this, they're just bad. I also like their awesome giant robot cockroaches. Those are pretty cool looking too. Now here's a question. Did you ever see that episode of Are You Afraid of the Dark? The Tale of the Hatchling, where two kids get sent to boarding school. And while at boarding school, they learn that like the other kids are being brainwashed by the administrators who feed them sponge with a U every day. And then like the kids are all brainwashed so that at night they go to the school's basement and like feed a pool of alien eggs that will eventually hatch and its babies will feed on the human race. Did you ever see that episode? That was pretty cool. That plot reminds me a lot of this episode. But in my honest opinion, I may like the Are You Afraid of the Dark episode more. Now, the real question is did Are You Afraid of the Dark rip this idea off? Or is this like some kind of like cliche, like, oh, a kid gets sent to boarding school and, there's like some kind of shady stuff going on that, the parents don't know about? All right, so Wingnut and Screwloose were not in the 2003 show, but there is a bat mutant in this Turtles Forever movie. One of the foot soldiers gets mutated into this giant bat creature. And, you got to wonder, with the blatant, like, Toka and Razar appearance in this movie, like, is this a nod to Wingnut and Screwloose? Well, probably not, but it's still a pretty cool looking bat creature. Wingnut and Screwloose were also not in the TMNT 2007 movie. This was a pretty cool movie, I gotta say. When I watched it way back when it came out, I liked it. You know, it's not the best thing. The story's a little cliche or maybe a little boring, but just the animation was pretty awesome in it. So there is a bat creature in this movie, and the bat creature is called the vampire succubor, succubus. Apparently this thing it was the inspiration for vampire stories or something like that in this TMNT universe. It looked pretty cool, and it actually did have a toy that coincided with the movie line. But unfortunately, just like all the other monsters in this movie, it has a very small role. You don't really see it too much. That was one thing that I wish that they almost would have cut out the whole what's his name, Max Winters or so. I can't remember the name of the guy in this movie who is the guy from ancient times who they're trying to help or whatever. I would have just liked to see the Ninja Turtles fight monsters. Like I said, the movie was pretty cool, but it left a lot to be desired. I wish that they would have embellished on a lot more of the things in the movie, like Raph when he's the vigilante. So you can actually read about Raph as the vigilante in the Raphael movie prequel. This was stupid. Why would you make prequel comics to the movie? Just put all the cool stuff in the movie. So back to the bat creature. You can actually see a more thorough fight with the bat creature. There you go. Oh, this is very, very bright. There you go. I think that's a little better. So you can actually see them fight this bat creature, Donatello and Michelangelo and Splinter, which is pretty cool. Now, the artwork is done by Jim Lawson, so, that might be a little, you may not like it, or you may think it's crazy awesome. So, whatever. So, Wingnut and Screwloose finally did make an appearance in Season 4 of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2012 show. The episode was called Bat in the Belfry, and this episode is kind of a mix of a few different Ninja Turtle stories. Wingnut and Screwloose are Michelangelo's favorite comic book characters. Mikey uses the Aeon Crystal to bring them to life, right out of the comic book. What's the Aeon Crystal? Well, the Aeon Crystal is a powerful crystal that April received in space. The crystal has many abilities, but one of them is it can bring inanimate objects to life, and more specifically, artwork and pictures. The Aeon Crystals is actually based on this crystal in this Donatello microseries from way back in 1980. When did this come out? I don't even remember. But this is the Donatello microseries, and it appears here first. In this early Ninja Turtle comic from 1986, I looked it up, Donatello meets one of April's tenants. That's this guy right here. His name is Kirby. He has this crystal attached to his pencil, and when he draws something, that will come to life. Now, if you didn't know, this is kind of like a tribute to Jack Kirby, because he, his drawings came to life. I think another source of inspiration for this story is Michelangelo meets Bugman from the Fred Wolf series. Bugman is Mikey's favorite comic character, and he gets to team up with him in a few episodes. I think the 2012 episode, Bat in the Belfry, does a better job of explaining why Mikey is able to, team up with his favorite comic book hero. It seems like Mikey has a habit of, hanging out with his favorite superheroes, because even in the 2003 series, Mikey would sometimes hang out with the Sentry, and he would dress up as Turtle Titan. So Mikey just loves superheroes, plain and simple. So at first, Wingnut and Screwloose attack Mikey because they mistake him for their arch rival, Tortoise Man. But of course, they turn out to be buddies after a short period of time, just before they go crazy and become bad again. In this episode, Mikey gets to dress up as his superhero alter ego, Turfly, I guess. I can't remember is that how you pronounce that? Turflydle. So at first, Mikey teams up with them, and they fight some of Wingnut's arch nemesis. And the episode parodies, the Batman 1966 show with word balloons appearing on the screen during the fights, which is pretty cool because I love that show too. If you ever had any doubt in your head that Wingnut was a parody of Batman, this episode does everything it possibly can to, let you know. Wingnut is a parody of Batman, all right? They go to Wingnut's base, which has like a giant penny in it, just like Batman's Batcave. He even uses he uses Wingnut-orangs when he's just fighting Michelangelo and Casey Jones. And he also has a Wingnut Zuka. And that's pretty funny because that's like a Batman 66 reference. Because in that show, a couple of times, and I think in the original Batman movie, Batman and Robin have to use the Bat-Zuka. Eventually, Wingnut and Screwloose become corrupt. They become corrupt by the crystal. So they turn bad for a little bit. I really like the monstrous forms for these guys. I think they look awesome. The good guy look, I get what they're doing. It's just a little tame, When I first started watching this episode, I was like, oh, this is a Wingnut and Screwloose. But when they actually become monsters, that's when I'm like, wow, this is pretty awesome looking. They get these huge heads and nasty pointy teeth. I love that stuff. That's like Venom. This is a pretty decent episode that, has some really cool comic book nods. But in all honesty, I forgot this episode existed before making this video. I forgot that they were even on this show. Maybe it's a little uneventful despite, my love for Batman 66 and all the cool comic nods. I especially love when they're talking about their favorite comic books and you have these very cool parodies of Marvel covers. Especially that Todd McFarlane one. That's pretty awesome looking. I do want to mention another bat creature really quick. Now, in the beginning of the series, I think maybe season 2 or something like that, the Turtles accidentally mutate April's dad, Kirby, into a bat monster. And at first, for a long time, I thought that maybe this was the series' Wingnut. I just thought oh, well, there's a bat monster, so that's got to be him. But nope, I was wrong. He's his own completely different bat creature, and eventually we finally got Wingnut and Screwloose. The Kirby look is pretty cool, but it's a little, it's a little unnerving. You look at him and you're like, oh, that poor bastard. So now that we're done with comics and cartoons, we got to move on, and we're going to talk about video games. Now, unfortunately, Wingnut wasn't in any of the Nintendo or, beat-em-up games or anything like that, but he does show up in this awesome Super Nintendo Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Tournament Fighters. This is pretty cool because look on the cover right there. You have Armagon, which is pretty awesome. And what's even cooler than that is this game is filled with a bunch of Archie characters. Now, what I love about this game is that Wingnut looks just like he does in the Archie series. He's got the blue fur. He's got the bat symbol on his chest. Now I don't really play this game that much because, it's never that fun playing fighting games by yourself. I could play with my kids, but I would probably destroy them all the time. So, but yeah, he looks awesome. Look at him. He flies around in the sky. He doesn't have the giant wings though, so they must have based this. I'm gonna get my butt kicked here. Oh my gosh. I'm trying to remember. Okay, yeah, you press. That's a special move. He doesn't have the giant mechanical wings, so they probably based the model sheet on this guy after they made the oh my gosh. I'm trying to remember how to shoot the fireball. They had to base it on the model sheet from the later in the Mighty Mutanimals series than the early adventure appearances, which makes sense because, like I said, it has Armagon. Why can't I do this stupid? Oh, look at that. Oh, I'm sucking his blood. I ran out of time. I don't remember how to do a fireball, unfortunately. It's most of his moves are forward, attack, or down, while you're jumping. A lot of his moves you have to do while you're in the air. I figured it out. You jump in the air and you do a quarter circle down to forward and a punch, and that's how you do that, wing, that moon crescent thing, or fireball, or whatever you want to call it. Oh, come on. So I don't have the manual for Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Tournament Fighters on Super Nintendo, so I can't really speak for any of the artwork inside of that. But I do have this Nintendo Power 56. This is a pretty cool issue. And in here they actually talk about the Tournament Fighters game for Super Nintendo. And in here, where's it at? There's just like a cool picture here of Wingnut, as well as Armagon and the Turtles and, you know, everybody else. This was pretty awesome because, you know, you got to fight War in it from Ninja Turtles Adventures. And then you have Asuka, who, you know, I think maybe she was supposed to be April, but originally they changed it to this character. Because this character is from nowhere. She's just made up for this game. All right, it's time. Finally, it's time to talk about what I've been building up to this whole video. It's time to talk about the Wingnut and Screwloose action figure from 1990. First, let's compare him to Batman. Now, I'm sure you know what Batman looks like, but just in case if you were like, you know, raised in a basement or something like that, and you have no idea what Batman looks like, there is Batman, right? So, you know, what similarities do you have going on here? Well, you got the cowl, that's the same. You have the gloves, you have the boots, even like the shoulder pads here, like Wingnut, his shoulder pads, it almost kind of appears like the beginning of Batman's cape. The biggest difference is that, you know, this becomes the cape, and this sort of becomes the wings. If you look here, you can see that Batman has his bat logo on his chest, and Wingnut has that W there, which, you know, doesn't look like a bat. But like I said earlier in this video, the Archie Wingnut does have a giant bat on his chest, and that bat almost kind of looks similar to like the bat on Batman's chest in Batman Beyond. Both of these guys wear a yellow utility belt. That's pretty cool. You know, the biggest difference here is that, you know, Wingnut, of course, he's got wings instead of a cape. And he also has these, like, these metal plates wrapped around his arms and his legs for extra protection. And not to mention, Batman, you know, he wears his underwear on the outside of his pants, and Wingnut does not wear any underwear. He's going full commando. If you're curious, this Batman is the NECA Batman from the Batman vs. Alien 2-pack. You know, I think that this is one of the best Batman figures ever made. You know, I think he looks pretty great. So I tried to search through some of my comic books to try to see if I could find any images of Batman mutated as a bat inside of the bat suit. I even tried to do like a Google search and, you know, just look up like Batman mutated as a bat. And I couldn't find any drawings. Like, I swear that I've seen this before, like Batman as a bat inside the bat costume, but I just could not figure out in my head what it was from. I don't know if I'm making it up, if it's a false memory or what. So if you can remember any time where Batman was actually mutated as a bat in his bat suit, kind of like a man bat wearing a Batman costume, please let me know in the comments below. The best I can do is show you a few stills of Batman in the Batman Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles crossover movie. Their Batman does get mutated into a giant bat creature. This actually doesn't happen in the comic books, it just happens in the movie. But like I said, I swear I've seen this in print somewhere where Batman was a bat in a bat costume. I don't know. Maybe I'm just making it up. I can't remember. So in this movie, you know, it's almost like Wingnut appears in this film. Maybe Wingnut is actually mutated Batman with amnesia. You know, he just thinks he's from Huano, and Screwloose is like Batmite in disguise or something like that. Wingnut's sculpt is pretty cool. I think he's really awesome looking. You look at him and you're like, yeah, this is definitely a toy that I would want to play with when I was 6 years old. You know, he doesn't really have that 1990 TMNT gross factor, but he has that 1990 zany personality that a lot of those Ninja Turtle toys had at that time. Like, you look at this guy and you're like, I know how this guy would react in any kind of situations or any kind of stories that I was trying to tell with my Ninja Turtle toys. Like, I don't even need to watch the cartoon. I could come up with a really awesome personality for this guy just in my head. Unfortunately, like I think the sculpt is really cool, but a lot of it like gets lost on me or something like that. I don't know if it's because it's the blue color or because it's like such a shiny paint, or maybe the paint is too thick or whatever. But like it's a little easier to see these things with like these like harsh lights on it. But like in general, when I look at this guy, like I almost like kind of look past all these details, like they kind of get washed out. So I think that Wingnut will definitely be one of those figures that will, benefit so much from a ultimate release. Like once you have all these little details painted and everything like that, this guy is really going to stand out, because there's a lot of things here that like should be painted but just aren't, which is kind of a bummer. I think his face looks great. Like I said, he's got like such a crazed look on his face, a face that would fill any criminal with dread. Like his shoulder pads look like they're like layered, like you have a couple of pads on top of each other and they're kept together with these belts or straps. But like I said, you like, for whatever reason, like this all gets lost here. Like so much more than Muckman or Scumbug or anything like that. Like I look at this guy and I almost feel like he's basic looking, and you really have to look at him deeper or whatever to see like all these cool things on him. You have these straps on his upper body, these yellow ones that go to, like, I guess they would wrap around his neck, and then they come to the back here, and they would connect to these wings to keep these mechanical wings in place. These giant wings are actually called plasma-propelled bat wings. And these things are, they're pretty awesome. And I also think that the idea is, like, very creative. Like any other toy designer would have just made him like a giant bat with giant bat wings. But, the awesome people at Playmates or Mirage, whoever came up with this guy, just thought, like, what, we'll give him these little tiny puny wings and we'll build something big on top of that. And, it just really makes him stand out. It really elevates him above all the other bat creatures in turtle history. And, this just would look amazing in paint, Like, this would look so much better if this was all painted brown, like the wings in the front. And, like, here you sort of get the illusion that these wings are, connected to these giant mechanical wings. But even here, it's like, look at here. This little part right here is not painted. That should be painted, and it's not. So it, like, kind of kills it for you. And that's a bit of a bummer. You really get a sense that, Donatello built these wings because they look like scraps of metal that Donatello probably found in the sewer or the junkyard or whatever. I think that these are supposed to be like rockets. Like maybe these are like the plasma thing, rockets that propel him into the sky. And I just think it's cool how you have like all these different like plates all bolted together. You have like bullet holes in the front here. And it just looks cool how like you have these straps wrapped around the wings like that. Like, that's all very, very nice detail. I like these cool like pistols or guns or whatever they're supposed to be up here. I was wondering, what is this supposed to be like? This looks like it should be a part of his regular Batwing, but it's not. This is actually like a part of this mechanical piece. So that would have had to have been built by Donatello. What do you think he made those out of? On the back here, you kind of still have like the same thing going on, where you have all these plates put together. And I just really like, how it looks. I really like how it looks like this is really strapped to this wing. Like it actually, creates that illusion for me. I got to say that this probably would be very uncomfortable for him to have to wear these things on here. They'd be really heavy, and, he doesn't look like he has a lot of muscle on here to hold these up. So, I don't know what these are. I've been wondering about these plates with like these 6 holes. You have them on both sides, and you also have these things too, and I can't tell what these are supposed to be. These almost look like lights, like there, and on the other side as well. But yeah, it's all cool, and like I said, I like all the detail here. So Wingnut here, he's got like these cool like plates for padding on his upper arms. Those look cool. I like all the little like rivets or bolts in there. Now, you have these like cool plates on top of his gauntlets, and it looks like there's some pretty neat like, gadgets or doodads, or, maybe he's controlling his giant wing mobile or something like that with these. But like I said, because of the paint, like I barely even notice that these are on here. Like every time I look at him, I always feel like he looks very simple, and I have to look like deeper in order to like see all this cool detail. And like I didn't mention it before, but these gauntlets are also like Batman's gauntlets because they kind of have like these spikes. And was just wondering like what kind of cool stuff do these buttons on these gauntlets do? Do you think he's got like a self-destruct button? I mean, he probably is a predator. He's on the prey for Krang. I like the like these spiked knuckles. That way when he's punching bad guys, they really can feel it. Down here on his legs, you have more plates, more pads here to protect him. I was wondering if he's klutzy, he's probably fallen down a lot. He probably needs these to like protect him from falls. For whatever reason, these ones are not painted. This pad right here. And it's also kind of weird the way it's set up because this strap begins right here and it goes around his leg and then it ends right here where there's this hole and you can actually see like his skin underneath there even though it's not painted. And that just begs the question, how is this plate staying up? This would fall off of his body. There's nothing keeping it in place. I think his boots are cool. And I actually like how, Batman has, the point in the middle, right in the middle of his knee. But Wingnut here, he has the points on both sides. It almost looks like the middle of the Bat logo. Like, these are the ears sticking up. And he just has, these gigantic feet. If you look at his utility belt, there's lots of cool things going on here. This face, first of all, I thought it kind of looked like a bat skull, but I think just the way that the nose is, it's just supposed to be like a regular bat nose. There's just something about this that kind of reminds me of like Skeletor. So let's see, what's on the utility belt here? I have no idea what that is. It just looks like a little pouch. I like this time bomb. I think that's pretty cool. It almost reminds me of like the time bomb that Batman uses to kill the strong man in Batman Returns. You remember when Batman was just like murdering all those dudes in those Tim Burton movies? He really killed a bunch of guys. This spike here, I don't know what this is supposed to be exactly. I don't know what these are supposed to be. These little 3 notches or, bulges. I don't know what this thing is supposed to be either. Is that supposed to be like a magnifying glass? Is that like a compass? What is that? I don't know. This is pretty cool. This is like his, his wingarang or wingnut rang, whatever you want to call it. Now, I wish this was actually like a separate piece. I wish it was an accessory that he could use, that he could actually put in his hand. I think that would be great, because he's supposed to look like Batman, and he needs a wingarang or something like that. This pouch is pretty cool, I mean, what can you say? It's just a pouch. And then you have 3 bullets here for his bat gun. Wingnut's articulation works well, but it is a little more limited than the usual Ninja Turtle action figure because you don't have any like mid-arm articulation. So his head swivels all the way around. You have 2 shoulder cuts. Like I said, nothing else in the arms. You have ball joints in the hips, which is good. You could I don't know. I never really have any trouble getting him to stand, probably because his feet are so large. He is a little top heavy, but the feet kind of balance him out, which is good. Now you do have some articulation in the wings. These will rotate around like this. So I guess maybe that makes up for your lack of arm articulation. I kind of wish that he had more like an extended fist arm or something like that. Because if he is supposed to be a parody of Batman, you want him to clock the bad guys right in the face. So, this does not look like a normal fist. It just looks like a gripping kind of hand. And then the other hand, he's just constantly, pointing at bad guys like, you. So here's Screwloose, and he's got, the crazy eyes. They're all over the place. He really should act like Nuts in the cartoon. But I feel like they got the personality completely wrong. He's, very serious. And he's actually kind of like the leader. He kind of bosses Wingnut around, where I feel like he's just supposed to be like a little zany companion kind of guy and crazy. I think that obviously they were going with a different direction in the Fred Wolf series, but I still think that he should have been a little more crazier instead of being like, we're going to take over the world, I'm so serious, blah, 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 blah. I think if anything, the way he's designed, he almost looks like a criminal or like a thug or something like that. Somebody that Wingnut or Batman would be beating up. Because he's got a wife beater on, he's got boots and work pants. He looks like he would be robbing a store or something like that. That's why I think the Archie design was so much. I think it was so much better than this because he did kind of look like Robin. You know what would have been really cool if he was actually more of like a parody of the Joker, since his name is Screwloose. You had like a little parody sidekick Joker buddy hanging around on top of your giant parody of Batman. That'd be crazy. Now, I can never get like Screwloose to stand up. Like, I don't know how you're supposed to balance him, like maybe somehow on the tail and his foot, but I just can never get him to stand up. He always falls over for me. Screwloose's inability to stand isn't that big of a deal, though, because you can always stick Screwloose on Wingnut's wings. There you go. Now Wingnut has his old chum hanging out on his back. Sometimes he'll fall off, but like that. But you always got to find that sweet spot where you can bounce him on top of the wings, and his hands will kind of keep him in place. So that's good. And this is, in my opinion, the best way to display your Wingnut and Screwloose action figures. Wingnut has two accessories. First, he has the bat gun. Now, I think this is great because I love the little bat face on the front of it. There's a little bat symbol here, and just even like the way like everything is arched, it looks like bat wings. You know, it perfectly captures that bat aesthetic. It can fit in his hands fairly well. Now, let's see here. Sometimes you can get it. All right, so you can kind of make it look like he's got like his finger like not on the pointer, like he's like a cool guy, like he's one of those cool guys in the movies that like holds his gun like all like side cocked or whatever, and kind of points with his fingers at like, yo, I'm gonna shoot you right in the face, sort of thing. You know, that works well. Can you fit it in the other hands? No, it does not really fit there. Another cool thing about the accessories is you can actually plug them onto his wings. That's great. Now, if you think Batman wouldn't approve of Wingnut using a gun, just remember, when Batman first started, he used a gun too. The second accessory is the blood-busting bat bomb. This is really cool too. I just like the way this grenade or bomb looks. It's got a pretty cool handle. Like I said, it has the arches of like the bat wings, and it's got a cool bat symbol right on the front of it. So that's awesome too. And can he hold this? Yes, he can. So that is always good. You know, it always sucks when you get a toy and you can't actually like hold the weapons in the hands. You're like, why did I buy this? Like, I'm just gonna like pose this weapon next to them on the floor. Like, that's no good. And like I said, both accessories plug right on there, so you can always display Wingnut complete. You know, you don't have to have like a weapon that he can't use. That's why, like, it'd be awesome if he actually had a detachable Wingnut-a-rang or something like that, because like then he'd be like fully loaded. He'd have his full Wingnut arsenal, his Wingnut bat arsenal. You know. I love like I said, I think he looks cool. I love how you can put the grenades and the guns like on his wings like that, and it'd just be cool if he had another weapon that you could hold in his hand. Like if you had a third weapon that you could hold in his hand, and that would also plug onto the wings so that you could like exchange them and stuff like that. You know, that would be perfect. And that's all for Wingnut and Screwloose. Now, like I said, Wingnut I think is one of the coolest bat creatures of all time. He may be my favorite. You know, like Man-Bat and all those other bat creatures, they're just giant bat guys. But I love Batman, and I love parodies, and, you know, just having an action figure of a Batman parody, to me, is just really cool, and, you know, I like it a lot. And he works really well with your Ninja Turtles when they team up to fight the bad guys. That's all good. Now, I wish I could, like, throw in another update here at the end and be like, hey, and guess what? Super 7 just announced an Ultimates figure of, you know, Wingnut and Screwloose. Like now. Or now. But we need to wait. Unfortunately, I'm unable to do that. And like I said, I can't wait to see what Super 7 does with this guy. So, thanks for watching. Let me know what you think. Have a good one. And swear to me!